about a minute gone past 11 o'clock. And this morning, we want to welcome our special guest joining us from the Special Victims Unit. We have Detectives Samekah Farray and Detective Anika Charles. Ladies, good morning and welcome to the Mid Morning Buzz.
Good morning, Janelle. How are you?
I am doing good. I had an extra long weekend, so I'm sorted this week. I can't complain. But it's good to have both of you. And this morning we'll be discussing a very important topic. It's we see it a lot. We wish it wasn't here, but it's here, and we have to deal with it. And that is the issue of domestic violence. Before we go into the discussion, are there different types we'll be looking at, or is it just, I guess, the more prevalent one, male to female violence?
Well, I would say, domestic violence because it affects everyone. So, generally, domestic
Generally,
violence.
would
So, as we go on, there will be different types of violence that we speak about under the bracket, yes.
children be considered domestic violence, or you just consider this child abuse as well?
Well, there is violence that happens to children in domestic situations, so we'll also touch on it.
Okay, well, take it away. The floor is yours. In a nutshell, just tell us, for this year especially, what your unit has been dealing with in terms of domestic violence.
Okay, so good morning to you, Janelle, and the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. And today, I'm representing the Special Victims Unit. I am Samekah Farray, WDC 483, and we were tasked with the responsibility to speak to you today on domestic violence and what the unit would have been dealing with so far. I would say the Special Victims Unit, when it came on stream in September of 2018, our mandate were to deal with domestic violence, sexual abuse, and all forms of child abuse. Today, we're discussing domestic violence. And what is the unit doing? We are educating persons, victims, as well as perpetrators, stakeholders, and other entities about domestic violence, the do's and don'ts. When victims come forward, what do you do? And what the justice system does with regards to victims of domestic violence, law enforcement, working with special entities such as social development and other stakeholders to make our work easier, working in synergy to ensure that we sing the same song, meaning that we do or we take the same action when necessary.
Okay, and for the avoidance of any doubt, from your perspective, define for us what would be considered domestic violence.
So domestic violence is any controlling or abusive behavior that harms the health, welfare, or safety of an individual or person in a domestic relationship, which includes psychological, emotional, sexual, and physical abuse.
Okay, I especially wanted you to do that because I wanted us to capture the psychological abuse, which sometimes go untended, but it is a form of domestic violence.
Yes, it is.
Do we see people coming forward with a lot of that type, the physical, the psychological abuse?
Well, it encapsulates basically when they come forward, they report like they might come to report physical, but while speaking, you realize you gather information with regards to the psychological aspect of abuse. Yeah, so they do speak about it. They talk about persons like, for instance, their spouse would have said things like, "Oh, I hate you. You're ugly. You're fat. You're obscene." Those type of things. It affects their mind. It affects them mentally because, for instance, that person would have started a relationship with Joe. So Sarah would have started a relationship with Joe about 2 years ago, and all of a sudden she got pregnant. She had a child. Her body would have transformed a lot, and now she would have gained weight. All right. I'm just using it as a scenario. And after that, it's like the man could say, "Okay, well, I'm going to stay home and take care of the kids, honey, and you go out and exercise to get back there." But now the roles and responsibility became much more. So as a result, she has to manage a family, she has to manage herself and her husband, and not even taking care of her physical body. And as a result, most times they are traumatized based on the insults used. Yes, so I would say it comes out when they come forward to make report.
If there is the psychological without the physical, can you get involved? Can the police get
Yes, we
involved?
can. Yes, we can, because there are insults and there are threats. And insults, like, I don't want to use the words, but the thing is that insulting language, there is a charge under the criminal code as well as threats. I'm going to kill you. If you leave me for anyone else, I'm going to kill you. Or I will kill you if I see you talking to Don down the road. Yes, they can come forward and make report.
Okay, I'm thinking though those may be a bit trickier to probably pursue and take to court because if he see he's getting in trouble, he might just say I didn't say anything to her. I don't know what she's talking about. She probably should be in the mental.
But at the end of the day, is his word against her word. Yeah. So So once insulting words used, and to her annoyance or to his annoyance, because domestic violence doesn't only affect women and children, although we have the majority of reports being made by females who are affected, but men are also victims of domestic violence.
Have you seen the
Yes.
men coming forward to make complaints? Because I know they, this macho thing, guys, they shy away from making those types of report, fearing ridicule and different reasons. Have you seen any men coming forward within the last year or maybe year and a half?
Certainly, they have been coming forward. They may not be in the vast numbers like women, but they are coming. They are coming forward, and they are making reports just the same, because they are. We are at the unit. We at the unit are ensuring that we don't speak only for females, but also for males, and we're encouraging them to come forward as well. So they're building their self-confidence and so forth, and they're coming forward. Yes. So we
Nice.
would have.
And what has been the success rate in pursuing those cases brought forward by men, especially?
Well, they're receiving the same treatment like females. We gather statements from them. They request court action or they request a protection order. We ensure that we take the statements. We write up the protection orders. The same services provided to victims, and we ensure that the matters go to court. So at the end of the day, they're not left behind, and we're not treating anyone different. We're treating everyone the same, females as well as males.
Okay. So you don't have any stats as to what percentage we would have come to you and would have been successfully prosecuted?
Well, with regards to males, with regards to the statistics, let me just you see, it's not me alone on this morning. It's both Miss Charles and myself. It looks like you diverted all the questions to me. So I know she's.
I just throw them out. Whichever
No,
one
but the thing
want
is
to
that
take
how
it.
it's written. So I would like her
Take
at
it.
least to get a little, a little talk just the same. Yeah. So with regards to the statistics, she might be more versed with regards to that than me. Right.
Okay, so Detective Charles, over to you. We need some statistics as to the percentage of cases coming your way and those successfully being prosecuted. And we're not hearing you at all. You probably need to adjust your audio a little bit for us. We're not hearing you at all. Okay, go again. Still no audio from Detective Charles.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're hearing you now. We're hearing you now. Go ahead.
All right. So as I was saying earlier on, I'm going to give you the statistics as it relates to the Special Victims Unit for 2020. That's the number of reports
Okay.
we have received. So in January, we had 6 reports of domestic violence. February, we had 1, March 7, April 3, May 8, June 8, July 3, August 4, and in September, we had 2. What happened is that from the period of March to May, that would have been the lockdown period, and anecdotally, many would have thought that there would have been a significant increase in these reports because the perpetrators and the victims would have been bound down with each other. But we have not seen an increase in those reports. We're not saying that they did not occur, but we did not see an increase in the reports. And one of the reasons we may think that had led to that was that the victims were already, they were in the home with the perpetrators, and maybe they were unsure as to whether the stations were operating as fully because it was the curfew period. So in total, we had 42 reports thus far for 2020, that's January to September, and of that figure, we had 15 arrests being initiated on perpetrators. One of the perpetrators being a female. So as a result, a male would have come in and made a report, and we would have initiated one arrest on a female. And the remaining 27, because out of the 42, the remaining 27, we issued warnings to the perpetrators, and in some cases, we assisted the victims in obtaining protection orders at the magistrate court. So this is one of the services offered at the unit to victims of domestic violence. And for the year thus far, we assisted 31 victims in obtaining protection orders from the magistrate courts. As compared to last year, we had, no, this year, sorry, we had 30, and last year we had 31 protection orders. So that's it thus far for the unit, and for the RGPF on the overall, we had 739 reports of domestic violence. So that's inclusive of the special victims unit, you know, the Eastern Division, the Western Division, the Northern Division, the Southern Division, everyone, the RGPF on the whole, we had 739. And of course, as you would have asked the question earlier on, we have, this includes intimate partner violence and blood-related violence. So brothers and sisters, and also coming up from this year, we have had 2 murders, homicides, as a result of domestic violence.
Okay.
That's blood-related.
That's 739. I find it a bit high. How does that compare with 2019?
Yeah, well, the 739 is from January to August for 2020. And in 2019, from January to December, we had 1,304. Of course, some of the cases that we have would have been some less serious cases like the obscene language and the insulting language, right? So some of those cases, once a person comes and make a report, it will be recorded into the statistics of the RGPF.
Okay, I mean those stats are still high for a small island nation like us. Predominantly, what has been the top 3 causes of domestic violence that you've seen so far?
Well, we cannot say scientifically what are the main causes of domestic violence so far. What we can tell you is the top 3 offenses that would have been occurring as a result of domestic violence. That we have wounding, causing harm, and threatening language. These are the top 3 main offenses perpetrated against victims of domestic violence in Grenada.
Okay.
As it regards to the
investigation, I know you cannot say scientifically, but what were some of the contributing factors? Has it been alcohol? Has it been anger? People can't control. What are the main causes? Is it poverty and frustration? What, in your experience, I know you're going out there, you're meeting the victims, you're interviewing victims and perps. What are you getting as the main contributing factor to the violence?
Well, there you said it. What you said so far, the poverty, the jealousy, you know, all these things, and then a lady might be in a relationship with a man and he's the breadwinner and she doesn't have the authority to support herself, means financially, and he's the only one that works. So he may cause harm to her or threaten her, and she can't leave because she may not think that she has no further hope. So she stays there and take the abuse, or she may come in and give her statement, or she might go back. So she comes in, tell the police she wants to take action, and then 2 weeks later, she may come through and say, well, I no longer want to go forward with that matter. We've been having instances like that at the Special Victims Unit where victims come in, especially females, and later on they may come in and give a statement saying that they no longer want to proceed. But what we do at the Special Victims Unit is that we continue with the matter, we arrest the perpetrator, and we send the matter to court. Because under the Domestic Violence Act, the police has the discretion to charge. So even if the victim says, well, I do not want the matter to go to court, the onus on the police to still bring that matter to court. So some form of justice may be served.
That's good. That's good. Because generally, they say once you start to get licks, he hand fast, he go come back and he go tell you he's sorry and
Yes.
hello. You move on. You get him arrested. You get him locked up. In terms of treatment, though, I would say just lock him up and probably pell the key very far. But in terms of treatment, because I'm sure he's going to be locked up for a period of time, and we want him rehabilitated when he's coming back out into society. Do you know? I know you probably don't know, but maybe you do, because your role is to deal with it on the front end. But what happens after you arrest him and you send him up to the prison? Do you know what sort of programs he may be involved in to rehabilitate him to reintegrate into society?
Well, we don't send them to prison. Point of correction, the magistrate does that. And at the court, well, right, in the court, these matters normally goes to family court. So in the court, you'll have representatives from legal aid, also representatives from the Ministry of Social Development, Gender-Based Violence Unit. So these persons will be there, and the magistrate may send that person to legal aid for counseling, mandatory counseling, that is. There is a man-to-man program that the legal aid and counseling clinic has ongoing. So most of them goes to that, because in most instances, the magistrate, once it's a one-off case, first-time case, the magistrate don't usually send them up to Richmond Hill. She give them the opportunity to go through counseling to see if they can work it out. And of course, if it's a repeated offender, she may have a different decision. She may recommend a magistrate's prison or fine.
Okay, wonderful. If somebody is listening to this program now and they have a partner who is abusive, be it male or female, and as you say, you probably in love with the person and you know they're abusive, maybe you don't want to get them arrested per se. Maybe it's your child father, so you're in this relationship and you want them to get the help though. Can people sign up for those programs without going through the police?
Counseling, of course, I believe there are private clinics and so that persons can go through to get the help. But what we would advise these persons to do, so if you're out there and you're hearing our voices now, you need to come in and make a report, because many of those extreme cases of domestic violence that leads to death, these are the starting stones, the first steps in those things, because they may say, well, he's not so much abusive now, so I'll give him a second chance. And then it happens again, and it happens again. And maybe on the 10th time, it happened, it may lead to death. So what we're advising you is to come forward, make a report to the police. We have different agencies that we work with to provide the necessary assistance that you may need, and even your children. Because under the Domestic Violence Act, there are lots of different pillars and different rights that the victims have. We also have some safe homes in Grenada. We have a safe house that even if you think that you don't have anywhere to go, there's a safe house available, so the police can bring you to that place unknown to the perpetrator. So the perpetrator won't have any knowledge as to where you are being housed.
Okay, wonderful. What about self-defense? If somebody wants to get involved in self-defense, is that a program the police may be involved in, teaching people how to basic things to defend themselves in their if they are in certain abusive relationships that can get abusive?
Well, for now, I cannot say if the police has any programs like that, but one of the mandates of the unit, the Special Victims Unit, is to advocate and to do community policing initiatives. And due to the COVID-19 phase, this was one of the programs that we had in place to put on stream of domestic violence, self-defense. So where we would get women, and we have some skilled officers in the force that was training the defense combat, and they would have been on stream on board with us to assist those persons. But it will come along on stream. That's one of the promises that the SDU has.
As you mentioned, the COVID, how has your department been coping with the virus in terms of being able to go out and you mentioned that is one area affected. You cannot do your community outreach as you normally would. How else has it affected the department, and what are you doing to cope with it?
Well, as with all other organizations, the Special Victims Unit and the RGPF by a greater extension has been affected extremely by the novel coronavirus. And What we have been doing is that during the lockdown period, we have been going to the homes of persons to assist them. So in certain instances where persons were not able to come to the station, we went there, took statements, and applied for a protection order on their behalf. Yeah, so this is one of the things that we have been doing, because as I said, persons weren't able to come in to give reports, so we have been going out to meet them.
Okay. Just generally, before you leave us, give us some coping tips. What can people do to cope if they are in domestic violence? Or, well, I wouldn't say domestic violence relationships, but you're in relationships. What are some of the tips that you can use to cope better and maybe to avoid situations that could lead to domestic violence?
Okay, so I'll interject here. With regards to coping methods. So what I advise persons to do in a situation where you have a victim would have called the police to make a report, what we would do would respond because it's mandatory reporting. But coping tips, if there's a form of abuse, I would encourage that person to report it. We would come to you because once a report would have been made of domestic violence, the police have to respond. On arrival at the victim's residence, what would happen is that we would encourage the victim to accompany us to the station to make a report. If he or she refuses to do so, then we as a police officer, what we can do is advise the person to get counseling, to seek counseling, but you have to get their consent. Without their consent, you cannot just go and force it down their throats. You give them the contact number for the Special Victims Unit or Ministry of Social Development if you have it as a police officer, or if a child is being abused, you educate them as to the roles and function of the Child Protection Authority, and you give them a contact number in case of child abuse, sexual abuse that occurred to that child, or if that child is being beaten maliciously by family members because of stress or depression. Also, you encourage these persons, right, under the COVID protocol. Well, we don't really have a protocol in place for domestic violence at the moment, but what we've been doing at the unit, we've been a support body, meaning that we follow up with victims of domestic violence. So during lockdown, we realized that, yes, it could be difficult for persons to cope with stress. And as a result, we ensure that we follow up with our victims to ensure that they are safe, to ensure that they are protected. So what we do is make sure we do that on a weekly basis. And if they have any issues, we respond to their reports and work along with the Ministry of Social Development to see if we can get some assistance in terms of providing some form of safe home, so as Michelle sort of stated earlier, for the protection of the victim and their children.
Okay, so the Social Development Unit and the CPA, those are your two main partners for the unit.
Also, I don't want to leave out legal aid because they work along with us very nice. And we also have other NGOs who work along on the sidelines. You have entities like Gino, and they work along with us very well.
Okay. Something I've heard a lot. Some people they're saying, at what point do you go to the police? You're in a relationship. If he cuffs you, if he slaps you, at what point should they come to you? Is it any form of abuse? Some people may consider a slap. The guy may say, well, I just give her a little tap, I didn't hit her. I mean, at what point is it considered violence that we should get the police involved?
As soon as it starts, he's not supposed to threaten you. One, that's an offense. Saying, I'm going to kill you, and if I can't have you, no one else will.
So maybe he didn't use the word kill. If he say, I'm going to rough you up.
Well, they could still report it to the police. What I would say is that they could report it to the police, and we at the units, we have persons coming forward and say, oh, he said he would do me something. Or going to various stations. Although there isn't an offense, I would do you something. Did he say anything else? They would say no, but I'm scared. We would pull him in. We would speak to him to prevent whatever from happening. So be it like from him, like committing an offense then. We try to prevent it at an early stage. So at least we speak to him, tell him the do's and don'ts with regards to domestic violence and the offenses and what he can be charged for. or what she can be charged for. I don't want to be gender biased here. So that's what we do here.
Okay, I was just asking because actually I know one guy. He was, I think, probably your unit got involved and he was arrested. He was charged, but he was adamant. He's like, I didn't hit her. Just we had a quarrel and I just gave her a little touch and she called the police. He felt wrong. He said he felt he was the victim, and she just set him up to get after his job, and so that's what I was asking. At what stage
That's
should people come
assault.
to you?
That's assault. If she's annoyed with what he did, she has a right to make a report, because by right, as a victim, if a victim come forward, a victim comes forward, then they come forward for a reason, all right? And they believe the police, we are here to protect them and to serve the nation. So that's why they're coming to us for help. And by right, if you and your partner have a fight, yes, you might say harsh words, but be very careful what you say to your partner. That person have feelings. So if you insult the person and you tell them, oh, you're ugly, or you're ugly, and you're obscene and those type of things, this constitutes to insulting language. So
Something
you
as
have to
simple
be
as telling
careful how you
somebody.
speak.
Some people may say that is just speaking some facts.
Yes, but
That is
persons have to be
considered
careful, because in
interesting. I
Grenada,
should be
people are
charging some
offended by a
people.
lot of things. You're
Getting
making me
some
laugh.
people charged.
Yes, so you have insulting language, you have threatening language, and he's not supposed to even chuck her with his hand or touch her to the point where she gets annoyed or she feel any form of pain. You will be charged for assault, and it
Even if it
depends on
is your
how hard
wife.
yeah, you get in charge. Yes, a husband could rape his wife, and get charged. So
Have,
you
have you
have
had many
different.
cases like that? Spousal rape?
Yes, we have cases like that coming in now.
You
And the
should be
thing is that
interested to
persons have to be
prosecute.
very cautious and read a lot and educate yourself about the do's and don'ts and what is domestic violence, because domestic violence doesn't only speak about you and your wife, it also affects the community, it affects the children, because the children are being affected, and they are not affected only at home, but they bring that energy in the school. They inform their teachers, they inform their peers, and what do we do about it? So in order for us to break that cycle of violence, in order for us to break the tension building and the acute explosive phase and the honeymoon issue that you try to make up at the end of the day, once a report is made, we deal with it, because we want to break that cycle.
And I guess that's why those programs are so important, because I think anger management is something people have a lot of problems with. You can't seem to control your anger. You get vexed and you lash out, you hit, you get physical. A concern I was hearing from some males is that the women, they provoke them and they may, as they say, they push them or they poke them or they pinch them, whatever, and if they retaliate, when they hit back, then the female, of course, it might be a harder blow, then they call in the police, but they were the ones who initiated the action to begin with. In cases like those, how do you move forward?
Okay, so in a situation like that, if the woman comes forward and she makes a report stating that her spouse would have beaten her, right, by punching her, so forth, and he comes and he states, like, while we're interviewing him, he requests, officer, I'm going to give a statement requesting court action against Jenny, because Jenny would have punched me or slapped me first. Then, yes, we would record the statement, so it would be a cross charge. She would get charged for be causing harm or grievous harm, and he would get charged for whatever, if it's assault or whatever he would have done to her. So she's
Okay.
getting charged for
What
what
are
she
some
did
of
to
the
him.
sentences we can see being applied in domestic violence cases?
So we have offenses like, with regard to domestic violence, I would start off with the offenses first. You have sexual violence, such as rape. You might have indecent assault, because if you're about to in the act, right, and you and your spouse start like fondling, and it so happened that she says stop, stop. I would encourage you to stop, because if you proceed, whatever you do, so be it you use your private parts and you rub it on her private parts, you can get a charge for indecent assault. Indecent assault can be 5 years. Rape, the maximum is 30 based on the discretion of the judge or magistrate, you can either get like 15 years if that perpetrator didn't waste the court's time or the police time. So they're looking into they're considering all that in the court. If he didn't waste the police time, if he didn't answer any questions or so, and have us running around like a wild goose chase. And then you have offenses like sexual assault, where you have some brutal cases where persons would insult, beat a piece of stick into a female's vagina, and those sort of things. You have persons doing that, and this is a no-no. So you have different charges. You have 14 years for the sexual assault, and I could go on and on and on for you all day. But there are different types of abuse under domestic violence. Persons are not charged under the Domestic Violence Act. However, they are charged once an offense would have been established, then they can be charged under the criminal code. All right? So that's where we get the charges, and we would charge person based on the offenses. So be it assault, causing harm, grievous harm, rape, sexual assault, you name it, damage to property, because most oftentimes these parties share households, like they own a house together. And because of the protection order, they might ask the man to leave because there are children involved. They might leave the mom in the house with the children to ensure that she's safe or protected. And that man, or he might come and break the pipe in the yard. Or maybe throw her clothes outside and burn it. That's damage to property. And yes, we deal with those matters here on a regular basis, not only at the SVU, but the RGPF on a whole. So these are things persons need to take into consideration. When you get angry, instead of you beating up on your spouse, what you can do is walk away, go out, get some fresh air. I encourage you to do that. Take a deep breath. It might be difficult because, yes, I know some women might be provocative at times in terms of their tongue. Women are provokeful. Yes, some of us are. And some of you men are as well. No one's perfect. But at the end of the day, how you deal with it, you want to end up in a situation where you go before the court and they remand you to Her Majesty's prison. You need to stop, think before you proceed going forward. Yes, teeth and tongue will meet, but how do you cope with an issue? Think about it. Think about your children seeing the abuse. Think about what will you tell them after it happened, because you're not only causing trauma to your wife or the husband, you're causing trauma also to the children, and they also would need help.
Great point you made there. And when the children see that types of behavior, that is sometimes what they grow up, and the cycle continues. I want to ask you though, have you found that alcohol abuse is a big contributing factor to domestic violence?
Based on my perspective, I could say based on my perspective, I cannot speak for anyone else. It's to me, although it's not scientific, but when you listen to persons speak, like I grew up in a community where I see people drink, right? But I've never seen persons abuse persons because of that. But when persons, like I would have worked in other parts of the RGPF before, and I would have listened to victims speak. And they would say, I believe alcohol is one of the contributing factors because when he is sober, he don't hit, he don't use insulting language, and he don't cause harm to me. But when he drinks, he's a different person, a different attitude, different behavior. He wants to kill. He throws all the food outside. He beats me to the point where my eyes turn blue-black. So I believe it could be one of the contributing factors.
I know there's a thing with drunk people, and is it that they can't be held responsible for their actions? Is that the case?
I believe they can, because most of the time, sometimes when people drink, they know exactly what they're doing.
I say that it's what's in your head that comes out.
Exactly. So some of them pretend that when I drink, I could always tell the police, oh, I didn't know what I did last night. And some of them, it might affect them mentally. Yes, because of their nerves and so for their mental health issues. But there are some persons who knows exactly what they're doing when they're drinking.
The alcohol
So
is
if
just
you
the
know you have an
excuse. As I
issue,
said
what I would
jokingly though, that when he wants to go home and tell his wife what he has to tell her, he'll just heave some alcohol on himself and go.
see, so I told you, that some of them know what they're doing when they drink alcohol. So some of them could control themselves, whereas some drink to the point where they know nothing at the end of the day.
Remind us again how we can get in contact with you, your hotline number, the different avenues people can reach the SVU.
Okay, so you can contact us on 440-4739, or our hotline 400, that's 400, or you can call the Criminal Investigations Department on 440-3921, or Police Headquarters, that's the radio room, 440-3999, and you can get us through 911 as well. Yes?
Before you go, the 700 and was it 39 cases that came through the RGPF in general, are they channeled to your department or are they handled by the different divisions and stations?
So it's handled like we have a few cases that came to us, 42 came to us so far, and the others, the rest or the remainder, were dealt with by the members of the RGPF Island-wide Grenada Carriacou PT Martinique.
Okay. Any parting words before you leave us, either of you ladies?
Okay, I would encourage victims to be brave. I know it's difficult to be a victim of domestic violence. I have not been through that cycle, but what I can say to you is that we're here to help you at the Special Victims Unit, not only at the Special Victims Unit, but the RGPF. We are here to provide support to you, a form of safety to you. So report it to us. Break the silence. Do not keep it. Because if your children are witnessing this form of abuse, they will think it's normal to go to the schools and to take out their anger on other children. They will become, some of them may become bullies, and some of them may turn to alcohol. And you don't want those things, or run away from home and so forth. You want to encourage your children that home is a safe place and they will be protected by mommy as well as daddy. So today I advise you to speak out and break the silence, and that's my ending words for you. Have a
Thank
good
you
day.
so much, Detective Farray. Detective Charles? You would need to unmute your mic again.
All right, so yes, thank you. Sorry for that. So yeah, my advice is similar to my colleague Ms. Farray, saying that you need to speak up. If you're experiencing any form of domestic violence, come forward. We're here to assist you. I know maybe long ago there was that stigma attached to the police, saying when you go to the police they may laugh at you, but I'm admonishing now that it is different now. We have a different, we make you feel comfortable when you come into any department in the police force. There will be a non-judgmental basis. So no police officer will judge you. So come forward. Let us help you. There are many systems in place, and we must give thanks to the Ministry of Social Development, Honorable Delma Thomas, and the colleagues over at the Gender-Based Violence Unit. They have been working hand in hand with us, and also our friends over at Child Protection Authority. So we just want to let you know that there are many services here that we can offer to you. So come forward, speak up because we need to end that cycle of violence towards women, children, and of course, our men. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Detectives Samekah Farray and Detectives Anika Charles. They're both attached to the Special Victims Unit. Again, folks, if you're experiencing any kind of abuse, any kind of trouble in your home, you can reach out to the SVU. A very, very trained and experienced team is waiting there to help you. Again, you can call them 440-4739. You can call the hotline. It's easier, it's faster, it's free if you want to reach out to the RGPF and protect yourself, protect your families. This thing about he beating me because he loved me, hello, not so. That is wrong. It is abuse, and he can be charged and you can be protected. There are different ways of getting you help. We leave it here for today. It's 19 minutes on to 12. Real Value, they still encourage you to support the hot food section. Great menu out there, I understand. Farmers, if you have produce, you can call them 439-2121. Cami can't be with us today. She should be with us next week, God's willing. So we shall get that information from Real Value next week. But they're open, and I hear the hot food today. The menu is on, so go on down and check them out. We leave it here for now. Thank you so much for viewing, for watching. Those of you on our social media platforms, those of you on GBN television, stay with us on Classic Radio. We still have some great tunes to get to before the 12 o'clock hour. I'm Janelle. Bye-bye for now.
Greetings, everyone. I hope this message meets you and yours in the best of health as we join